Hello and welcome to this week's show. Our featured guest this week in the show is an award-winning, data-driven Chief Marketing Officer and business strategist with 20 years' experience. I maybe shouldn't have said that, but anyway, with quite a number of years of experience in marketing, sales, analytics and leadership. Our guest certainly has global influence, as you'll hear. Prior to joining Willow and Ridley as the Global Chief Marketing Officer, Michelle Zamora held a similar role with IBM. Michelle, welcome to the show. Great to be talking to you.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Okay, well, before we talk about Willow and I ask you about the digital twin, can I just ask you firstly about IBM? What was it that made you jump from such an illustrious company to get into the world of tech startups, for goodness sake?
I had an amazing career at IBM. I spent 20 years across sales, operations, marketing, and my last role was actually head of marketing for IBM Watson and IBM Blockchain, and was really blessed to be able to work with companies that were often in the leading edge of using AI and blockchain to transform their business environment. And then when I was approached by Josh Ridley, who's the CEO of Ridley and Willow, he took me through the property industry, and it's an industry I hadn't considered before, and had thought that it was quite, I guess, laggard in a lot of ways when I compare it to banking. But then when I went through the opportunity and saw that this is this amazing industry right at the cutting edge of completely transforming everything that it does, and then the ability for technology like AI and blockchain to really revolutionize, it was just an opportunity that I couldn't say no to, and being part of this journey is pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, we'll get right into what Willow does, and it must have been a huge leap for you to go from IBM to a tech startup in an environment or in an area that is just so pioneering, really.
It's been massive culture change for me. Had worked in a large enterprise for so long, but I have to say that I've loved moving into tech startup world where everything is so fast paced, it's agile. We can make decisions, we can try things quickly, we can succeed quickly, we can fail quickly. And I think at the heart of a marketer, this is what marketing is all about. It's being able to test, trial, change, transform, and see what does and doesn't work, and have that permission to just be creative and use data and technology to be to really push the creative boundaries.
Yeah, well, going into tech's one thing, then going into a startup is another thing. But what was it about property that attracted you?
I think it was a combination of you look at buildings, and I remember going to London last year, and I walked around London and I saw all the things that you expect to see in London. I saw the beautiful Christmas lights and the amazing restaurants. And then going back to London mid this year with Willow, suddenly I was looking up. I was looking at all these beautiful architectural structures, and I was then looking at the bricks and mortar and realizing that here's this building that is so much more than just bricks and mortar. It's a whole lot of sensors. It's a whole lot of activity of people channeling through these buildings, and then the connections that happen within that building. And I look at the world I live in so much differently, and it's property that's really allowed me to do that, the property industry.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful introduction into Willow, because I think, the focus of this conversation should be about Willow, and more particularly the digital twin of the world. Can you explain? You've sort of just touched on it a little bit there, I sense, but can you tell me what it is, what it means?
So Willow is a visionary digital twin technology company. We started in 2011 under the brand name Ridley. And when we started in the marketplace, it was to do the digital architecture for buildings. So that's where you take the beautiful architectural designs and turn them into digital plans that can be built by the construction company. We then evolved into digital engineering, which is all about how do you build a smart cities or a smart building or a smart rail network strategy, and then how do you actually do all the project management to implement that. So that could be 3D modeling, 2D modeling. As an example, BIM management, the collection of all the assets and sensors and all that data that often stays within the different stages. So the data that the architects collect stay with the architects, the data that the construction company stays with the construction company. And then in 2017, they bought a company called Tapify, which was a small software engineering startup company based in Israel, actually. And they moved their software development team in Australia, where we're headquartered, and Willow was born. And so Willow is the combination of Ridley and our Willow platform. The Willow platform is essentially, it creates a digital replica of the world we live in. So it creates a 3D and a 2D digital replica. It takes all of the data from design, construction, operations, and even end of life of a building, and it helps a building owner understand all of that beautiful rich data, from geospatial to static data to live data, so they can make better decisions about how to use the property, how to use the space, how to design future buildings. And then just more recently, we've then expanded that to launching a open protocol application where developers can all plug into the open protocol software platform, and you can create a customer experience app for the building. So it allows people to connect and engage with the building.
Yeah, it's a fascinating field. When you start to think about it, the number of uses it could have. I know you mentioned there about developers, but even project managers and people who are managing buildings to get a real holistic understanding about the building is really quite dynamic. Are you pioneers in this field? Is Willow a pioneer?
Yeah, I see Willow as a pioneer. We are pioneering the way for a better and smarter way of managing a building and creating smart buildings. And I think that's one of the reasons that I joined Willow, was that we're treading in ground that hasn't been done before. I mean, I know I used to think of facility managers as people that were just really expert at being able to go and fix problems, but not necessarily data savvy. And now I see facility managers as being these amazing data scientists in a lot of ways, because they're able to now use data to actually ensure that things don't break down, to ensure that maintenance contracts are created in a way that is beneficial to both the maintenance worker as well as the building operator. And it's a pretty exciting space to be in right now.
Yeah, we touched on a few people who are going to be able to use this kind of technology, and this is not so much the end users, but planners, but also people who are working with the building. But what about consumers? How are they going to fit into this Willow model, do you see?
Yeah, I think there's a book that I'm reading actually at the moment. It's called, I'm going to say this wrong, I'm sure, so I apologize for our Japanese-speaking viewers, but the book's called Ikigai, and it's this beautiful book around connective purpose. And the town that it studies has the most percentage of people that live beyond the age of 100. And when they analyse why they live so long, it comes down to connectiveness and purpose. And so when you look at a building, you don't necessarily think connection and purpose, but through the delivery of applications, we can help people connect on purpose level conversations. So how do you find people that want to solve causes like homelessness, or solve causes relating to cancer treatments? How do we help connect those beautiful people that's across different organizations and different companies on different levels of a business? I'm working in a building with that is an extremely tall building, and there are so many different companies in this building. So how do I find people that are working in this building that potentially could help me connect on a purpose, connect on a business problem, connect on solving an issue, whether it's a business issue or a social issue? It also allows organisations to reach out. So, for example, the coffee shop in a building, being able to connect to all the people that work in the building to let them know about the latest deal on coffee, or, hey, did you know we've got a new blend of coffee coming out? Allows a car parking company to connect with the workers to understand how to better optimise and find a car park quickly. So many different ways, but it comes down to connecting people.
Yeah, because here we're talking about vertical, we're talking about a building, but if you broaden that out,
Yep.
that's really a social network. You're really building, bringing the globe so much together, aren't you, where we can be communicating very quickly with people all over the world.
Connecting people across the world, connecting people in precincts. So how do we
right
improve
down.
the utilisation of rail transportation? How do we improve the utilisation of transport generally so that we potentially reduce the amount of cars on the road? How do we help people navigate through their city in a way that is healthy for the city? How do we help with emergency management? If there's a problem in the city, how do we divert people away from areas where there's a problem? How do we help people through floods, through electricity? And so some of the work we're doing in with Tyson Crop in Rotwell in their test tower is looking at how do we leverage their beautiful elevators through a lift and all the sensors in their lift so that we can help understand where people are in a building. So if there was an emergency situation in a large tower, how do we know how many people are on every level? How do we help understand where people in the building or out the building now apply, and then how do we make sure that everyone gets out of that building safely? Now apply that to a city.
Yes.
How do you ensure a city or a community is kept safe during a natural disaster or other disaster?
Yeah, and of course we've seen some major natural disasters around the world in recent times, fires and cyclones and typhoons and so on. To be able to let everyone know instantly about what's going on is going to keep a lot more people safer, isn't it?
Totally. And, as I'm not just a CMO, I'm a mum of 3 children. And so when I come to work, I'm not just coming to work as a marketing professional, I'm coming to work as a mum. And, knowing that I'm part of something that's creating a world that could be safer for my children, that's what inspires me to know that my kids are going to be okay.
Just talking to you, it just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Keeping people informed within a school or any kind of environment at all. Tell me about some of the technology that you're bringing to this to help connect, to help engage. What can you give me some examples?
Yeah, sure. So we are partnering with our amazing partner, Microsoft, using their Azure IoT solution. So literally our solution reaches up and touches the cloud, but that solution uses IoT, so Internet of Things. It uses artificial intelligence to ensure that we're really creating insights that help people make decisions quickly. We're also using blockchain. So as an example with Tyson Crop, with their innovation tower, we're using blockchain to help take all of the data from their elevators to be able to show that exactly the moment that an elevator is maintained, so that they can actually have that confidence and certification that the elevator has actually been checked, has been maintained the way it's supposed to. It then maps that data to whether the elevators are running at 100%, 95%, 90%. It then can then release payment from the automatic payment to then pay people based on the achievement of particular KPIs. So they build the contracts are built on ensuring that the elevators are running at 95, 100%. And so if the elevator is not running at those levels, then payment is then reduced contractually. Wow. So a really great way of ensuring that both parties are protected.
Yeah, and a couple of good things that come out of that. I mean, blockchain itself ensures the integrity of that information, so no one can be playing with it. So you can totally rely on it. And the other thing too is in, say for instance, like a rail system, where we hear about how effective the rail system is, it's running on time or it's not running on time. Is that reliable? Well, this type of information makes it 100% reliable, and you can actually use those as reliable KPIs.
Well, we partnered with Structon. Structon are the Europe's leading rail maintenance company. They run their trains at 99.7% availability, and that's pretty spectacular. So we've built we've merged our digital twin technology and software platform with their amazing knowledge and eminence and experience, and can now track problems on a rail network down to a 1 millimeter crack, so that we can ensure then that through like an Uber-like type of application, we can then find a maintenance worker that's within a close vicinity, send them to that rail track, have that fixed, and ensure that there's no delay and no downtime of the train. That saves millions of dollars every year for a rail company. And that's pretty exciting, being able to ensure that we're making lives better for people and more profitable for companies.
Michelle, what we're talking about here, is this pie in the skies, is this in the future, or is it starting to happen now?
It's happening right now. I mean, you look at Structon. Structon are doing this now through their entire rail network. You look at Investor Property. Investor Property are an Australia-based company. They delivered 151 Clarence Street recently in October. And Mark Tate, who's the executive director or the group executive for development, said it's the first property that they've ever had where they've had 100% of data on the day of handover. That saves massive amounts of money for the contractor, massive amounts of confidence and certainty for the property developer. So this is happening now with Investor Group. Tyson Crop, as I said, it's happening in their test tower, but now they are now using that to roll out to other projects across the world. All great examples of things that are happening right this moment in time.
Michelle, we're out of time, but thank you so much. It's been a delight and very, very enlightening to talk to you. Thank you. I've found this very stimulating. We'd love to have you back on the show at some time when we talk about, the developments that Willow's going through. So thank you very much. My guest has been Michelle Zamora, Global Chief Marketing Officer for Willow and Ridley. Michelle, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye.